in your squadron.
Sir, what advice do you have for students at Tyndall or even air battle managers all over the globe right now trying to figure out, should I go to AWACS or JSTARS?
The AWACS versus JSTARS argument, there are two variables, if you will. First and foremost, it's just needs of the Air Force. Sometimes there are vacancies in one platform or the other that we just have to fill. And then I personally am a proponent of, if there is genuine interest, meaning some people frankly just prefer to work with the air-to-air platforms and the speed of the intercepts, if you will, and the culture that is part of being at Tinker primarily, and of course Elmendorf. If that kind of suits you more so than working with the land component at JSTARS unit, super critical and super important, especially in today's fight over in the CENTCOM AOR, then if you have an opportunity to give your vote, for lack of a better term, then vote. For sure, but just keep in mind that in some cases the needs of the Air Force will trump that. If there is a vacancy at Robbins for the E8, and you want to go to Tinker, in some cases you'll have to go to Robbins. That doesn't mean you'll never get an opportunity to be an AWACS guy or gal. That means that your first assignment will be at Robbins, and then now you get an opportunity afterwards to go to another platform. Especially now that CRCs are getting gate months accrued at the same time, so it's not like it used to be where you lose gate months if you went to a ground assignment. So that's one less variable, and I think AFPC did a great job of fixing the glitch, if you will, on that one. So there's nothing to say that if you didn't get your first choice right out of the UABMT, that first ops assignment, you can absolutely switch platforms. And frankly, I think that makes you a better air battle manager because you get to see it from the other platform's perspective. Battle management, those same 5 skill sets that I talked about earlier, it's platform agnostic.
We see so many commanders that come out of AWACS and not very many that come out of JSTARS. If I want to become a commander one day, should I go AWACS, or do I have a good chance of becoming a commander if I go JSTARS?
Being a commander is about leadership, and leadership is platform agnostic. What I think you're seeing is just sheer numbers, metrics, if you will. The perception that there are more commanders than AWACS commanders than there are JSTARS is because there's probably more AWACS squadrons than there are JSTARS squadrons. So it's just numbers. It has nothing to do with the platform itself. It has everything to do with leadership and the Air Force's take, if you will, on that officer's ability to lead at the squadron level, and frankly above the squadron level, regardless of the wings or he or she may wear on their chest, or regardless of the Form 8 that says you're an E8 air battle manager versus an E3 air battle manager. Does not matter.
As an air battle manager, what should I expect on my first deployment?
Your first deployment as an air battle manager, I'm assuming that first deployment is probably going to be somewhere in the CENTCOM AOR, just because of the dynamics that is in the world today. I think you should expect to learn a lot, right? Lean on your section leads, for sure. God gave you one mouth and 2 ears, and it sounds a bit arrogant, and I mean that sincerely, not that you're not a valued member of the team. We talked about teaching all the way from the foundation at Tyndall to the graduate level advanced flying tactics at the weapon school. What I can't teach you, though, unfortunately, is experience, right? Some of that you have to gain for yourself, and that on your first deployment, you'll see that your learning curve, if I had a graph in front of me, that learning curve would be pretty vertical, especially the first 60 to 90 days of that deployment. Once you get about halfway, you'll start to see that start to taper off as you get into the battle rhythm, if you will, and then you'll see very, very quickly you will become the expert as well. And your first deployment, before you tap out, you'll probably be training another crew that comes to replace you in your buddy flights. You, as the inexperienced guy or gal, you'll see very quickly after that initial steep learning curve, you'll start to plateau and you'll get into the groove, if you will, of being an effective battle manager in your deployment. And you'll become very quickly the expert, and the Air Force will rely on you to teach others as those crews come in to swap out, and they'll learn from you as well in your experience.
Going from AWO to SD, how difficult is that transition, and what should that air battle manager expect with that transition?
Remember when I said weapons school was a leadership course disguised in tactics? That's the biggest leap, is being a leader of the section. So I think very quickly that term SD will start to fade away, and it will turn into frankly, just a section lead, but I get where you're getting at. Being able to supervise those AWOs or air weapons officers, and being able to prioritize you, the SD. So you just went from being one of many, right? So depending on the crew complement, you have 1 all the way up to 6. Or if you're a kingpin, you could have be more than that, working for a singular SD or section lead. And so not everything is important at the same time. Absolutely goes back to mission planning. And if I had a whiteboard behind me, weapons officers love their whiteboards and their colors. I would draw a sample mission timeline, meaning those crunch points where I expect us to be a crunch point on an E3 or an E8 or a CRC is when you're doing multiple things at the same time. If we're only doing check-in, that's an easy day. If we're only doing TAC fluid control, that's an easy day. If we're only doing close air support and one OP, that's an easy day. When it's a crunch point, it's when we've got multiple phases. I think they still teach the phases of the intercept down at Luke. When we've got the TAC admin and the target BDR employment in the over target area, all of that's happening at the same time. That's when it becomes a crunch point, if you will, for any section, frankly. But if you're talking specifically for the senior director, that's where he or she makes their money, because he or she has got to be in front of that timeline in order to prepare the jet. So maybe I have to configure the jet, be it in radios or sensors. So I've got to be ready for that. And now keeping the team apprised of what he or she's doing, he or she being the SD in this example. So that, hey, team, we've got this event coming up in 60 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever the timeline may be. DCA controller, you've got these frequencies. Strike controller, you've got these frequencies. Make sure your radios are working. If the SD is doing that in the middle of that crunch, we've got problems, because we're not being as lethal as we can. We're not managing the information. We're not managing the force. We're not doing the effective integrated surveillance and ID or the continuum of control simultaneously and persistently across the battle space. Have I said this already? That battle management thing from way earlier when we were talking about it? It's just as simple. Anyway, that's the thing I would tell you. Be a leader for sure. One part I would tell you of being a leader, sometimes I would caution section leads to be the leader you wish you had. Just because now you're an SD and no longer the AWOL, that does not make you the know-it-all. The same way you knew things that your SD or your section lead didn't know when you were in his or her shoes, right? So empower your team. Play to your team's strengths and weaknesses, especially if you've got a hard crew, if you're in a deployed environment. If you've got a guy or gal that's absolutely fluid with the switch actions, or a guy or gal that's absolutely fluid with the tanker plan, play to their strengths. Empower them, and frankly, trust them. What you should be there to do is to ensure that they have what they need, be it a sensor information or a configuration of the aircraft, or the, or I was going to say OM, that's how old I am. We don't use OMs anymore in CRC, on the floor, and then making sure they have that configuration that they need in order to do their jobs, and then empower them. If they're falling down on the contract, pick them back up. If it's a safety of flight, or be it your own aircraft or aircraft under control, fix it and then give it back to them. My very humble opinion, we can debrief anything but safety. And so back to our debrief conversation, if I mission plan effectively, I prioritize my contracts, and now I can empower my team to do their jobs. Don't be that micromanager on the jet or on the ops floor. And now the team is afraid to make a decision, to manage information, to manage forces, to execute the continuum of control, because I got to wait for the SD or the section lead to tell me you're now handcuffing or handicapping your team.
Any last piece of advice, whether it's for young leaders, new air battle managers, students at the doghouse right now, just for anybody in general?
I'll give you 3 things, and I'll try to do it as quickly as possible, because I know people say it helps you talk too much. I'll tell you, man, I'm in my own house and out of my uniform, so I can say it out loud, man. Hey, prayer still works for me personally, right? When we talk about in the Air Force having that balance, right? Emotional balance, physical balance, spiritual balance. For me, that's absolutely a part of my balance piece, right? So find you a spiritual outlet. If you don't got a God, you want a God, I got a God, and I'll tell you about my God if you want to hear about my God, all right? So I'll leave that there. I try to live my life, and I've got kids, as young, this is my people getting updates, that's great. I've got kids that, my youngest is 13, my oldest is 19. I tell them all the time, control what you can. And I mean that, meaning absolutely control it. Leave nothing to chance, right? Because excuses don't produce results. And then, frankly, don't sweat the rest, because if the rest is out of your control anyway. So don't lose sleep. Don't give yourself anxiety attacks over things that you can't control. If you can't control it, right? See part A of this line. Control what you can, right? I tell her, when preparation and opportunity meet, success is the outcome, right? And then the final one, so there's the 2, right? Find your God, prayer still works. Control what you can. And then the last one, I'll tell you, life happens. You're going to struggle at times, right? But see it through. A long time ago, I was in I'll call it a stressful situation. I learned something. And there was a poem, the last stanza of the poem says, you may fail, but fall still fighting. Don't give up. Whatever you do, eyes front, head high, to the finish. See it through. That's all I got, brother.
Sir, I want to thank you again for spending time with us here. You have given some amazing points that I'm sure not only air battle managers, not only students will appreciate, but also those individuals throughout our United States Air Force. So, sir, I appreciate you spending time with me on this mentorship moment, and I can't wait for the next one.
My pleasure. I appreciate you. Thanks for picking up the stick, man, and leading the effort to ensure that we get as many opportunities to mentor each other in addition to the generation that's coming behind us, so to speak. So I appreciate it. Thank you for even inviting me. I'm honored to even be considered. So I appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely. So I am Captain Russell Lewis.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Kendrick, Carroll.
And we will see you all next time.